Welcome to Tippcast by Nenagh Guardian. Hello and welcome to Tippcast Live. Myself, Shane Stapleton, Shane Brophy, sports editor at Nenagh Guardian, here beside me as well. We're live on all the different platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Get your comments in and we will talk about them over the course of the show. And if you're commenting on Facebook or YouTube, we can bring them up on the screen and chat away about them. Shane Brophy, we can't but talk about Colm Bonnar because you did speak with him over the weekend and he had some interesting quotes, and you were saying you had a bit of a fire in your belly after talking to him, that, you know, he does seem like a man that the players can get behind.
Oh yeah, definitely. You could just his passion for Tipperary, like he could in every word he said, like it was coming across, and even back to his own playing days, where like he was 18 years hurling for Tipperary, and you think even after he'd finished up playing senior in '98, his brother, who was over the Tip Intermediates in 2000, asked Colm, "Do you want to come back and play?" And sure, Jesus, he couldn't get up to Dr. Morris Park fast enough, like, to train. Like, but that just shows you, like, he loved wearing that blue and gold jersey. And like, I don't think Tip are going to want for motivation or spirit or passion in the hurling next year. I suppose the key thing for Colm and whoever his manager team will be is I suppose the hurling style of hurling, how he gets them to play and things like that. But like as I said, and I wrote in my column this week, it was probably the more you read about him, the more you learned about him, you think, how is he not involved in Tipperary until now with all that coaching experience? Like, whatever about senior, like to think that he has had since Ken Hogan, he was involved with Ken Hogan's term as coach back 15, 16 years ago. But like, you would have thought maybe somebody like him, even at underage level, could have been at the part of something maybe in the interim time. So look, he's in there now, and I suppose it'll be interesting to see how things go over the next while. I don't know what you think about it.
No, I think it's great. I mean, he wasn't giving away too much in terms of who his backroom team is going to be. Sure, he wasn't. No, and that is the big interesting thing, because, you know, if we see the type of progressive hurling men or people who are supposed to be involved in the team, I think we can all look forward to 2022 and think, right, the right man is here, you know, because at this stage, everyone's going to give Colm Bonnar the absolute benefit of, I mean, I'm not sure if there is any doubt, but he's going to get the absolute benefit, go in there and experiment, bring new players in if you have to. But actually interesting what he said to you in the interview is, I'd never tell a player you're too young or too old. If you come in with the right spirit, enthusiasm, drive and hunger, that you want the jersey and want to create the best habits to put on that jersey, come up and give it a shot. And he says, age is only a number, and there might be a perception out there that we're in transition, but to me, we're not. I mean, were they very striking quotes to you?
Oh, they were, definitely. I thought they were. I was very impressed by his approach, very holistic. Like, I suppose for like he's learned so much, and like he's learned himself, and he says he's still learning the whole time. Like, I suppose that'll be interesting from the older brigade that maybe are having a think about maybe whether they'd stay on or not. But like, there's no doubt, I think, as he said himself, like, there's huge experience in that dressing room, and like, Tip can't afford to lose all that experience in one shot. Like, we've already lost Brendan, we really don't want to lose too much more, but it may have to be a situation, and look, it's up to the players themselves whether some might have to maybe accept a bench role, and but like, that's so important. Like, imagine the leadership of maybe somebody who said, I want to stay here, but I know I'm not going to be first choice anymore, but look, I'm going to be there. Like, you look at the likes of what Kevin Moran is bringing in Waterford, like, and like, he's like so invaluable, like, and the quiet word in the ear of a younger guy, you don't know how important that is. So like, I'd have no doubt Colm will be keen to probably keep on as many of the old guard, with maybe, I think he was still going to maybe put 35, 36 of a panel together, and I know he was at a fair few club games there on Saturday in Semple Stadium. So look, as he said himself, there's loads of talent in Tip. Like, it's just out about all just getting that right blend together and getting the right game plan together. But look, I just thought for an opening statement, an opening interview, he was very, very impressive.
Yeah, that's what you'd probably be hoping for. And it's interesting that he has been involved with Dixborough and Kilkenny as a coach alongside Pádraig Fanning, who was the former Waterford manager. And ahead of their second round group game against Clara last week, he did step away from it because, and very understandably so, I'm sure Pádraig Fanning would be more than understanding of that, having been a county manager himself, that Colm needs to throw himself all the way into this. And, you know, we've seen this over the years where an inter-county manager might be managing a county team at the same time. Someone who's just been appointed, I should add. An example would be Stephen Rochford a couple of years ago. He was taking Corofin all the way to the All-Ireland, and he had to kind of double job for a while. I'm nearly sure it's happening the hurling side of things as well. But he's gone straight in for Tipperary.
Like the Cavan manager when he's from Mullinlough.
Mickey Graham, yeah. So it just shows that I would imagine that because this has been so long coming around, that he's absolutely determined to do everything possible to get this going. Are you hearing any names being bandied around? I know he's kind of kept it quiet himself, but
not particularly. I suppose you'd be just speculating. I suppose I just wrote a piece in my own column this week about, I suppose, the importance maybe of bringing some of the talented young coaches that are involved in other counties home. Maybe I did mention the likes of Donegal Duggan, even down in Waterford. He probably knows Donegal very well. He'd be a Holy Cross native. He was Waterford minor coach, and even Richie Flannery in Limerick. He knows the underage setup in Limerick. He probably knows a lot of things that maybe we could pick his brains on. You have Johnny Enright, who's been involved with Meath the last 2 years, and you look the improvement with the Meath senior hurlers have made in the last couple of years, and I suppose they sure managed to stay up in the McDonough, isn't it? Yeah, the St. Kildare down, which was a big win for them. I'd like to think there'll be a blend of youth and experience. I would the thought is that Carborough Caroline will be staying around, and that's a huge. I think that'll be as important because look, he has the groundwork put in with Tip for the last 3 years through the players. I suppose he has all their stats and all their targets and stuff, and probably some of the younger guys maybe that were in the extended panel, they've been doing all that too. So like he won't be coming in with a black canvas, but he'll definitely be bringing in his own couple of facets as well. And look, we're looking at next year's National League. We're probably in the easier section of the two, so he should be able maybe to get a couple of wins under his belt. But look, as he said himself to me, like Tipperary have to compete every year. You have to go out to try and win the whole time, and like I don't think he'll be going in with transitions. While there probably will be an element of transition, it won't be an excuse if Tip falls short next year. And look, I think for every Tipperary supporter, they know that we've got to at least get in the top 3 in Munster this year, and anything after that we'll take. Like it's just you gotta get 4 or 5 points and get out of your group next year, and then you can reassess of where you'll be going after that.
Yeah, I'm delighted to hear that he's not talking about transition, because sometimes it's fair, but sometimes it's a bit of a cop-out from managers. If you go through that panel, even if any of the players who were over 30 did decide to retire from Tipperary, and then you would have lost 4 greats of Tipperary hurling, you go through the rest of the team, a huge amount of have won in All-Ireland just a couple of years ago, and then the rest of the players that are there, a huge amount of them have won All-Irelands at under 20, under 21 and minor in the last 3 or 4 years. So from my point of view, I'm looking at it and thinking it's just there to be gelled together and obviously give the right experience. So I think it's really, really good to hear that. Another question I'd have for you, Shane, is do you think any player would have very much impressed Colm Bonnar over the weekend in the club championship? We'll go through them all now in a minute, but anyone in particular?
I suppose, yes. I suppose I will be looking at a lot of the club games, maybe one eye, and maybe who might impress them. Like I know he's a guy that's in there, but Alan Tynan was very, very good for Ross Gray. Now he scored was it 5 or 6 points in play against Nenagh. I know. Look, he from what I'm hearing, like Tynan was getting better the whole time this year. He just needed to get the speed of his hurling right and stuff. It's like he has the physicality, he has the hard running style in him. So like I was very impressed with him, but it was a very, very open match. So look, I temper that a small bit. Who else? I'm trying to think of who the other.
Anyone for Thurles? Thurles put up 230. Anyone stand out there?
I suppose I'm trying to think. Yeah, no, I look. I suppose what's his Paddy Creedon again. So it's 1-3, 1-4. Like he was in with the under-20s, and he does have that bit of size about him as maybe as a ball winner in the full forward. And I think if he got into a senior setup and got a bit more speed into his legs, like he definitely has that power to be a ball winner as well. Kiladangan and Brackens, I was at that game.
Should we go through them, will we, one by one?
I know. I'm trying to think of in terms of guys. There was like one guy that actually stood out to me, and he's he needs a bit of filling out, but I just thought he has the raw ability. Is Colin Floyd of Newport at full forward? He scored 2-2 against Silvermines, but he's just there's something in him. I think. I know they beat a poor Silvermines team on the day, but he's a big full forward. He has a bit of a zip of pace about him. He has looked like he filled out a small bit more over the winter, but if he filled out a little bit more, I just thought he has a lot of the attributes you want for a good full forward. Like, so he probably one that would have said, okay, there's maybe he's a left field guy that maybe could do something in the years to come.
Absolutely. Get your comments in there and let us know what you think. We'll start off with Toome Vara and their win over Clonoulty, 117-116. This was on in the stadium, of course. And I would imagine Clonoulty are kicking themselves because I think they missed Jack Ryan, one of his frees, just pretty much from midfield, just about dragged wide towards the end of the game. But it was 5 missed frees in the second half. They left a goal chance behind them through James Hammersley. I would imagine they're kicking themselves, but great grit shown by Toome Vara.
Yeah, it was a tight game from like I was reading the match report. It probably wasn't a classic by any means, a real tough, turgid affair. But I don't think Toome Vara will mind a small bit. Like their 2 wins from 2, they've 1 foot in the quarterfinals, which is where they wanted to get to. Like, and I suppose, look, when you're coming out of a game beating Clonoulty Rossmore, who are as challenging a team as you will get in the senior championship, like it's a good day's work. Like, so as you said, Clonoulty missed an awful lot of chances, but Toome had them at arm's length for most of the match. So I think it probably might have been an injustice that Toome didn't take the 2 points. But look, they've rebounded very, very well from the Kiladangan beating they got in the North quarter final. They've beaten Holy Cross. They've beaten Clonoulty. They probably fancy their chances of making it 3 from 3 and getting to winning the group against Mullinahone. But look, Mullinahone, great win over Holy Cross too. Like, this is I would have thought this is probably the most open of the 4 groups in the championship, where any of them can beat anyone. You look at the scores; they're all very tight. And like, I was just looking at the group table there. Like, if Clonoulty win the next day and say Mullinahone win by 4 points, which you wouldn't say it is against them, Toome Vara could miss out on score difference. Like, and the same with Holy Cross. If they get a 3 or 4 point win over Clonoulty and Mullinahone are beaten, Holy Cross could sneak in there and score difference. So there's an awful lot to play for in that group. But like, you'd have to say for Toome Vara, they're a team that they're growing, that they're not blessed with. They're a very even team. I wouldn't say they're blessed with star talent, and I suppose maybe that's the one area they're maybe short at the moment. But like, you have Jack Delaney, Mark McCarthy, Josh McCarthy, a lot of really solid guys, like really probably 7, 8 out of 10 guys, and Toome have an awful lot of those players, and hopefully the Kenny Ryan coming back pretty soon, like, and he's come off the bench in the last couple of games. So look, they're I would think they're probably going to get to the quarterfinals, whether they have enough to win the county championship. I'd have to see a bit. They'd probably have to show a bit more at this stage.
Yeah, well, you say it's an even group and an interesting group, but I haven't watched Toome Vara Clonoulty game, and they would be the more likely of the 4 to be winning the county title. I'm not sure any of the teams in this group would necessarily be winning the county title. Like, definitely Clonoulty won't be overly impressed with their performance because very few players really stood out. They definitely needed to get more ball into the hand of Timmy Hammersley. Dylan Quirk was good at times, like a couple of really good bursts. But, again, I'm looking at him and thinking, well, it didn't really happen for him in the league this year when he was thrown in, but we know there's more in him than that. But just probably need to see a little bit more from him. That run by Josh McCarthy to set up the goal was unbelievable. He must have gone about 90 yards with the ball, and they're called the Greyhounds, and there was a fair example of one.
I know he's a good turn of foot on him, all right. So
yeah, a bit of toe, as they say in horse racing. What about Owen Kelly though, rolling it back, getting a winner at the end? Ridiculous.
Actually, look, we shouldn't be surprised. Like, you'd say, okay, he's 39, but you're at club level, like, you really, the likes of him could go into his 40s, like, for another couple of years. And look, we've got to cherish seeing the likes of Owen Kelly play as long as we can. Like, and look, he's that over the shoulder point. It's been a trademark since he was 17, when a lot of us only saw him for the first time. Like, so No, I think it was a great win for Mullinahone. I suppose maybe their target at the start of the year was to consolidate in Dunbreen after coming up from the Seamus Marine Cup. And look, they've 1 foot in they're not quite safe yet, but like they're now looking at maybe getting to a quarter final. And look, there's nothing to say they can't beat Mullinahone or Toome either in the last game. And I suppose it'll be reviving memories of some of their great contests back 20 years ago when they were battling it out for Dunbreen itself.
Yeah, we'll move on to Group 3 then. Kiladangan beating JK Brackens on Sunday, if I remember correctly. I can't not mention the 4 sideline cuts from Shane Doyle. I mean, give away a sideline now against Brackens and it just looks like he's going to stroke it over from anywhere.
God, yeah, it's just crazy. Like we were on the bank side, so he hit the 2 in the first half in the far end, and like I'd say all 4 of them were around the same distance, about 45 to 50 yards, and yeah, we were in the second half, and he was more or less right in front of us. And once he hit the third one, and I think it was about 2 minutes later, the next line ball caught, and Trevor was saying, "This is over the bar, like in first bang." It's incredible. Like I don't think I've ever seen 4 done in one match before.
I think Joe Canning did it. Did he do it in the 2020 semi-final against Limerick last year?
5, didn't he? Oh, he hit 4 or 5 last year, didn't he? Yeah, like that was 4 from 4 dial. He didn't even. They were the only 4 line cuts he had, like, and all 4 of them went over. Like incredible, and then he stuck another goal on top of it. Like it was a really, really competitive game. There was a nice little undercurrent of an edge to it all through. You said there's no rivalry with these two, but I don't think Kiladangan forgot the fact that Brackens held them to a draw last year, and even the Kiladangan sideline were very narky all the way through. Like, and it's not really their form. Like I think Kiladangan brought a little bit of an edge to this game, and it helped it too. Like there was a nice bit of bite to it. Kiladangan probably deserved to win it, but there's definitely the style Jacob Brackens played. Just it upsets Kiladangan a bit. It's a very footballing approach. I said Brackens played the same style hurling of football. They like to work the ball out from the back. Sometimes it's not easy on the eye, but it's very effective. They're able to draw fouls in, and Fairbrother sticks the ball over from all angles and distances. And look, they were I thought they were very, very good, Brackens, and like they'll fancy their chances against Lockmore now in a knockout game in 2 weeks. They're actually playing the football championship this weekend, so you'd like to think if anything carries over from that, it'll be if it's not already a spicy affair in 2 weeks' time in the hurling, it'll be even more so when it's winner takes all. Like so, beautifully set up that game. And look, Kiladangan, look, what do we say? They just don't blow teams away, but you always feel that they're going to win games. Like even when they lost,
there's no panic.
No, and they lost Sean Hayes to a red card with 15 minutes to go, and you said they're going to find a way to hold on here, and they did. Like they weren't panicking, and look, they just get the job done every time. Like so, like they're until somebody beats them, they're still a team to beat. Or you might say at the moment, Hurling Sars are playing the best hurling of any club, but until somebody beats Kiladangan, they're probably still going to take beating.
And the thing that stands out to me about Kiladangan is like, I would say the vast majority of their players are in great physical shape. And, you know, we talked there recently about how their B team beat Burgess in the Seamus O'Reen. So that kind of gives you an idea that there must be a very good culture in there. Obviously, there's a lot of competition, a lot of good players. But you look around the county championship and there's a few other teams that might have aspirations. You're thinking there's 1 or 2 players that, you know, maybe have a little bit of a gut or something like that. And you're thinking, well, I mean, this is something that you won't see with the likes of Kiladangan and maybe Kilruane and in general, and maybe in Thurles and that. And it's kind of like, it's one thing winning the county title, but like, you know, it's a long time since, I mean, obviously Borris got to the All-Ireland final, but no team has won the Club All-Ireland since 1987. For one of these, for the club teams to kick on, there has to be that culture of, you know, every player is absolutely fighting fit and, you know, in the best physical shape. And like Kiladangan kind of very much feel like that to me. I do think, like, on the other side, JK Brackens, I wonder how high do you think they can set their aspirations? 2 years in a row they're going that close with Kiladangan, and even their inside forwards, you know, it's more place balls that we were seeing from Lyndon Fairbrother, and obviously Shane Doyle got his goal from play as well. Didn't see enough from Shane Burke, I felt, but like, sure, they probably can go a little bit further again.
They probably can, but I just don't know, does their style of play allow them to? Like I said, it's very it's a very football orientated. Like they'll play Lockmore Castellini next Saturday in the football. It'll be the very same approach. They'll work the ball out from the back, and I suppose you probably think for the likes of Andrew Ormond, it's not a style of hurling to get more out of him. He picked off a couple of points, but he was very, very hard. The likes of Andrew Ormond needs an early ball into space, and there wasn't an awful lot of that the way they like to work it out. Maybe get to the half-back line midfield, maybe draw the tackle, slip a hand pass off to somebody off the shoulder. And it's a style of play we don't see an awful lot of teams in Tipperary play. To be quite honest, their style will be quite unique. But it's gotten them a long way. It's gotten them up from Seamus Areen to Dan Breen. It's gotten to a county football final, and look, there's nothing to say that they won't beat Lockmore Castellini in 2 weeks' time and get to a county quarter final. And look, they're very well coached by Eamon Corcoran. He gets the very, very best out of them. Probably short of maybe a marquee forward, but I say they're a very, very tough team to beat. You saw in their performance.
Yeah, and Corcoran's reputation as a coach presumably is just growing all the time now.
I would think so, and I think he was definitely approached by the county board maybe to get involved in some capacity. I just don't think he was in a position to have the time to commit. But you'd think maybe long term, and I'm sure Eamon will be ambitious in it himself enough that maybe he was a great player for Tipperary back in the day. He was ultra consistent as a halfback, and you'd love to think maybe in some capacity going forward that he will get a cut with Tipperary at some stage. And
what then of Lockmore? They're back in the conversation for the county. Lost the first day out in Arley to Kiladangan and beat McCarthy Borris 126 to 317. But you have even talked already about the fact that they're going to be juggling football and hurling. Is that even going to catch up with them, or what do you think?
I don't think so. I actually think it complements it. I'd say even people in Lockmore probably get a bit annoyed that people throw it. God, how do you do it hurling a football? But if I was playing for Lockmore, I'd love it. You're probably having a light training session during the week, and you're playing matches at weekends. Whereas maybe if you're a hurling club only, you have to have a bit of a blowout training session and in the midweek, in the weekend session before you go hurling again. So I don't think they mind very much. And look, I just showed you they were 11 to 12 points down against Mycarkey at halftime last week, and they scored 115 in the second half. They really found another level. But conceding 317s, that's a lot. But they'll be more than wary of the challenge Brackens will bring. Although Lockmore, they gave them a bit of a trimming in the mid-quarter final a couple of weeks ago, but maybe Brackens weren't maybe up to speed at that stage. It was within a week of Tip losing to Waterford, so maybe Brackens weren't up to speed. But it'll be an interesting way. You still fancy Lockmore to get through. They're so hard. They just have the talent, they have the scoring ability. A couple of players coming back from injury, Kieran McCormack coming in there now, Tommy Maher. They'll have Evan Sweeney coming off the bench scoring 4 points to play. They just still have that quality 16, 17 players that will go a long way, provided they don't ship any key injuries.
So you would have watched Kilruane against Borris Lee on Friday night. Game put back for 15 minutes with the generators under pressure. But when it did get going, it was very high scoring. There was 4:45 scored between the two teams over the hour. And Kilruane are the team that saw it out 224 to 221. Anyone in particular or anything in particular impress you about this game?
I suppose I was very disappointed with Borris Lee in the first half. They actually brought nothing to the table, and it wasn't as if Kilruane were doing anything special. Kilruane play a very, very basic game plan, and it's win your ball, you have a look up, there's forwards on the move, you get it and you have a shot at goal. And I just thought they were so passive, Borris Lee, in the first half. I know they're trying to adapt their game plan. You would have said they were the one that got them to the club final was pretty basic, and then maybe by taking Brendan Maher out with centre back, they're looking to maybe develop it more, get him in, linking the likes of Kevin Maher and Jerry Kelly there around the middle third. But God, I couldn't understand how they couldn't lay a glove in Kilruane in the first half, and that was, I suppose we have to give Kilruane credit. they came and they brought their A game. And in fairness to Borris, they've got back to basics in the second half. Reeled them in, but they just let themselves too much to do in the second half. And look, the injuries to Dan McCormack didn't help. And then Niall O'Mara suffered
hurt his ankle by the looks of it.
ankle ligament damage. And I was talking to their manager on Saturday evening, and even he's in a race against time to be ready for their quarter final in the mid-October. Like, those ankle ligaments are notoriously difficult to clear up. Like, he's like he doesn't have to play against Roscrea in 2 weeks' time in the quarterfinals. They're not for 3 weeks after that. So I think he's going to get a clear run at it. And I suppose it worked out well for Kilruane. Like the Keane Darcy red card, he'll be able to get off that. Well, he'll be able to sit that one out against Roscrea. It won't be a costly affair. There's nothing riding on the game for Kilruane. But that was the only thing for Kilruane now. They're going to be waiting 5 weeks for their next game, but that they're going to have to create some bit of an edge against Ross. Maybe it's the fact that they're playing Roscrea, a neighbouring club. They'll create a bit of an edge for themselves in the match in 2 weeks' time, because like 5 weeks is a long time before you have your real next competitive game in that county quarter final. But look, for a team, I thought that maybe were vulnerable to maybe missing out and potentially being in a relegation battle. Like Kilruane have confounded everyone this year. Like, they've been very, very good, and potentially will get a little stronger with the likes of maybe Dara Peters coming back in the next few weeks. He was in America during the summer, so like he will add to their half-back options as well. But I just thought, I don't know if you as a Borris man, I just thought it was a very untypical Borris Lee performance in that first half.
Yeah, well, it was very frustrating to watch in the first 10 minutes. The goal chances being missed. I can't exactly remember who missed them at the very start of the game, but
Brendan missed one, didn't he?
Sorry?
Brendan Maher missed one, didn't he? Whether he tried to force it or what, or I think he gave the pass across the square. He's probably right too, but just maybe that first touch was a bit off for the recipient. Yeah,
well, like Borris got in behind Kilruane early on in the game, and you're getting no return for it. And then actually the work rate was unbelievable, turning Kilruane over a load of times in the first 5-10 minutes, and you're thinking, right, Borris Lee are motoring really well here. And then all of a sudden, I don't know if that gave Kilruane oxygen, and then once they got a score or two on the board, they just started to take over, and it was something like 11 points to 3, and just Borris couldn't get going at all. And like Thomas Cleary started really well. He offered himself up as a ball winner, and he was just stroking him over. He must have scored 4 or 5 over the course of the game. He was really, really good. Seamus Hennessy, I mean, obviously the mobility isn't quite what it used to be because of all of his knee injuries, but he scored 1-4. Like, once the ball goes into his hand, so it's very, very difficult to stop him because he's just so strong and he's such good wrists. But like James Devaney did get that goal after 25 minutes. But other than that, he needs to get himself into the game an awful lot more. And I know there's the whole thing of, well, get the ball to him, but also as a forward, you need to if it isn't coming to you need to find a way to get yourself into the game. So, the pressure will be on him now the next day against Nenagh to make sure that he does do that, because that's an all or nothing game.
Yeah, like I know they're trying to tweak their style, and they're definitely looking to play the two-man full forward line of Devaney and Eddie Ryan. But I just think I wouldn't be surprised if Borris Lee go back to basics now, and maybe it's okay. And we saw it in the second half. Put Niall Kenny in full forward. It just seems to work better for them, and maybe Eddie Ryan will do a lot more, maybe out the field, maybe put somebody in beside Kenny. And look,
well, Connor was in there as well for luck. Like, Connor was absolutely brilliant. He must have scored 5 from play in the second half. He was on fire.
I think he's wing forward is his position. Like, I just think that.
But he was very good inside,
Yeah. I think they probably get more out of Niall at full forward. And look, I thought maybe the rub of the green probably went against them, because like how Kieran Cahill didn't get a second yellow at 5 minutes in the end for pulling Niall. Like, in a tight game like that, it might have been enough maybe Borris maybe could have snuck a draw if they got a couple of late points if they had a man advantage. So but look, overall I think Kilruane definitely deserved to win the game, but like, you just hope for their point of view that the Niall O'Mara injury isn't as bad as made out. And look, suppose we have to say that it's acknowledge the passing of Niall's dad Ger a couple of days after the game. Like, and look, it probably epitomizes the O'Mara spirit and the way Niall plays. That Ger was at that store in the North Final 3 weeks before that, and that he lasted that length after that. Like, it just shows you that the will he wanted to stay going, and it would pass on our sympathies to the O'Mara family.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt about that. And the thing with Niall being such a player that he is, a lot of you'd have to say that Kilruane's chances of continuing to go in this championship, a lot of it do hang on whether he's going to be fit or not. I couldn't, if they get a very tough draw in a quarter final, without him, it's hard to see them coming through because he just does stand out so much head and shoulders.
Probably, yeah. And look, they're playing him. They're playing him in his best position, which is in defence. And last year they played him up in the forwards, and like he is versatile because that's where he plays will play with Tip. But I know Kilruane, his best hurling is in the half back line, and you would put a half back line there of him, Kieran Cahill, and Craig Morgan. Like, good luck trying to break those three down. Like you have as good a half back line as there. Like you Kiladangan have Jack Lucknan, they have Declan McGrath. Like if you have a strong half back line, you have a long way. You're going a long way towards winning a championship.
Could you be forgiven for being excited about the potential of Eddie Ryan, who was excellent for Borris the other night? And this is his first championship season.
Definitely look like I've heard great things about him for the last couple of years. And look, he just seems to have all the skills, and be interesting to see as he gets bigger and as he gets stronger what he's like capable to do. But it does definitely, you see at underage level, a lot of clubs will put their strongest player at centre back and midfield because they have no other choice. Whereas Eddie has probably been fortunate enough to come up through Borris Elite teams where they've left him in the forward line and maybe a corner forward, where the more you play out there, the more confident, the more ability you get as being a finisher, and there's no doubt he has that. So like he has massive potential going forward. And as you mentioned earlier, that Nenagh v Borris Elite match is so mouth-watering the next day. Like it's winner takes all. One of them is going to be going out. Like so. I think a draw is good enough for Borris Elite because of their score difference. But look, it's finely balanced.
Yeah, and just final point on Eddie Ryan. I like the way the ball doesn't necessarily have to be put into his hand for him to end up with it and end up with a score. But if you do put it into his hand, like he has a lovely flow and striking motion, and even when he's hitting the freeze as well, you don't even think for a second that he might put this wide. So that's definitely a player with a lot of potential for Borris Elite going forward.
That's a game like I that's probably a game maybe a lot more in Brackens. You'd love to see County Board think, okay, maybe that could be the Friday night game under lights in the stadium where it's winner takes all. That because the other match in the group, there's nothing really riding on it. Like because it's that maybe the Brackens game against Stockmore, or probably this one could get the Friday night treatment where everybody's. You have the couple of hundred that will be allowed into the stadium, 500 or what. I think 75% you'd actually allow as many as you want into the stadium probably, and then you'd have a good chunk of people watching it at home as well.
Yeah, so people get your comments in there, and if it's on Facebook or YouTube, we can bring them up on screen. But do comment on Twitter also, and subscribe to the channels, and don't forget the paper is out there today. So what about Nenagh then? 222 to 26 points over Roscrea, and given the manner of Borris Lee's win over Roscrea, and knowing now that it's winner takes all between Borris and Nenagh, should Nenagh fans, supporters be a little bit concerned about this?
Possibly so. Like it's look, they're scoring a lot, but they're conceding an awful lot. But they're playing a very, very open brand of hurling. I give the referee Peter Carroll an awful lot of credit for the game against Roscrea. He blew his whistle very, very quickly after the ball went dead. And in fairness, both goalkeepers and both teams wanted to get the ball back into play pretty quickly, and they did that. But it was a very, very open affair. And like you play an open game, that's what Nenagh loved to do. Like Michael Heffernan in the middle of the field in the first half was finding an awful lot of space, and he was scoring points and he was laying off the others. But then on the other hand, Evan Fitzpatrick was picking himself off for 6 points from play in the middle of the field for Roscrea. You know, Alan Tynan and Dara Tynan scoring long range points. So look, it was a case of, okay, we like this game too, but quality teams like Roscrea who have good hurlers will pick you apart too, and they'll score plenty of points going the other way. But I suppose the difference on the day was that Nenagh had the goal threat, and they got 2 goals. Probably could have picked off a couple more. Jake Morris was, like, when Jake is in the mood he's in, like he picked off 4 points, and he laid off a brilliant pass for Tommy Heffernan for his goal. And there was a couple of times in the game we've seen it with Tip with Jake. He probably does try to go for the goal when it's not really on, and maybe that's probably the last aspect of his play. He's got to figure out when to take the point and knowing when to take the point, and when you're maybe trying to force a goal, maybe taking a shot from 21 yards out that even your average club goalie is going to save most of the time. Like, so, like, we saw the goal against Limerick in the Munster final. Like, that was 14 yards out, 1-on-1 with the keeper. He's going to bury a goal. That it's the ones maybe 21 yards out where it's probably less than 50-50 that you're going to score it. Like, because most goalies at this stage are top class. Like, they're going to save those chances. But it'll be interesting for Nenagh. I don't think Borris Lee are going to allow that game in 2 weeks' time to become very, very open. Like, and they'll try and keep it as tight, as physical as they can. And look, the last 10 minutes of the match against Roscrea, it was all Roscrea. Nenagh were hanging on, and just Roscrea just didn't have the wherewithal maybe to take the few chances they had to at least get a draw with a match. So I think there's a lot for Nenagh to think about over the next fortnight.
Yeah, this is a game I didn't see, so I'm curious, did Barry Heffernan play full back again, and then where would he play against Borris Lee?
He started out at centre back, but Nenagh and Dara Quinn went into full back. But Dara was carrying a stomach injury, and he only lasted up until the first water break. So Barry went back to full back. But look, both teams were sort of playing a sweeper anyway, so he was sort of roaming around between half back and full back. So look, it definitely seemed to suit him more to be at centre back, and he's still sweeping up an awful lot of loose ball back there too. So like, Nenagh will be hoping like Dara Quinn will be ready to go the next leg. They will need to be at full strength. And in fairness to Brian or Porgan, he's using an awful lot of young guys that maybe you would have said was a criticism of Nenagh before. Like, they were using the same 16, 17 guys, but Paul McLaughlin is getting a run there, Mark Carey, Adam Healy in the half back line. Look, it was probably a time where these guys needed to be given their head, and look, maybe it might catch up on Nenagh this year, but maybe team Nenagh going forward, like they're young guys and they're needed to be given a chance and be trusted in there. And look, it might work for them. I think this Nenagh Borris Lee match is going to be very, very tight. It could go a couple of points either way, and like, both teams have a goal threat too. So look, I think this is set up to be a really, really good game now in a fortnight.
Yeah, and it just occurs to me, Jake Morris only turned 22 a couple of months ago. So, I mean, imagine the player that he can develop into in the next couple of years, because he's already making an impact at intercounty level.
Then you'd be looking at it, Dan McCormack going to be right. Was like, whether was it a dead leg he got? Like, he took a fair hit now from Kieran Cahill. Like, it was or whether it looked like more of a dead leg or something like that he just ran into. Like, but he would beat him back.
Do you think Borris will rejig a little bit and try and find a position where Brendan Maher's in the game a little bit more often? Because, I mean, generally, like, we saw what he was in terms of Borris's run to the All-Ireland final, the key man. But just this game, he wasn't quite as prominent.
Quite possibly. Like, it's, I don't know what you would think. Would you be looking at would you go Dan? I know Tommy Ryan is suspended, so maybe Dan Brendan will probably have to fall back into midfield. And I was thinking maybe, I don't know whether his work situation, I don't know if Sean McCormack had done anything to justify maybe he fallen out of the team in the last few years. Like, I thought he was a very steady presence there in the half back line, and maybe they will probably look back to more the likes of him, maybe coming back into the team and just having a steadying influence on the team, and maybe going back to what I suppose, getting through the next game and getting into the knockout stages.
Yeah, they might go for runners. I was even thinking Kieran Maher playing in the. Yeah. I mean, when you're watching on the stream, I'm thinking,
he was cornerback. He was cornerback in the first game, and they did go back to Seamus Burke, Liam Ryan, and Kieran Maher in their full back line.
Yeah, and Paddy went back in the full back line as the game went on. So I don't know, maybe Kieran Maher's kind of legs, he's obviously in the defence there because you want to have pace, but you wouldn't be shocked to see him in the midfield area because obviously, as you said, their foot, he's going to be suspended for that next game. But anyway, we'll move on to Thurles Stars. They are very much the form team at the moment. They're after putting a couple of wins together and putting up 230 against Éire and Carty, and like 230 in 60 minutes of hurling. We're seeing that scoreline in Intercounty at 70 minutes, so they're obviously flying it.
Yeah, they're a team really motor now at this stage, and I say, look, I suppose we saw them this time last year and were motoring too, but they're scoring way more at the moment. They definitely look fresher, and like they've definitely. I would just say they've brought up, Brendan Carroll there and his manager. Like, they're definitely trusting maybe some more of the guys that were on their second team last year, like Shawnee Butler, and they have Jack, Paddy Creedon, they're coming in from their underage team. Like they have talent, like there's no doubt about it, but there's definitely a freshness to them and an athleticism, more speed to their hurling this year. And we all know they have the skills, but there's more movement to their hurling this year. And we all know, like, if you play an open hurling match with Thurles Sarsfield, they'll beat you the whole time. Like, and probably Anacarty had beaten Thurles pretty comfortably a couple of years ago, and probably there was a bit of revenge in what Thurles probably did. They probably played to the very end. But look, I was just looking at their team. They used 20 hurlers, and they haven't even touched their intermediate or their second team yet. Sorry, their senior B team. And I was saying, looking at some of their senior B, like their senior B team could go and win the Orion Cup, as it's probably very unlikely that any more players off that team are going to be used. Like, so, and that team has Conor Lanigan and Mikey O'Brien and Tommy Doyle and Michael Gleeson. Like, I said, Jesus, those guys that walk into most other teams, senior teams. So look, it's they're purring along nicely, and we all know if Thurles Sarsfields get into Semple Stadium, they're going to be hard to beat in knockout hurling. So look, they're doing everything that asked of them so far, and like they should probably get the win over Upper Church to confirm their place in the quarterfinals. And look, they were going well last year. I don't know what happened against Dean Éire Óg, whether it was an aberration or what. They just never got going. And potentially in a few weeks' time, you have Billy McCarthy coming back into the setup. I know he's getting very, very close to being involved. So I said earlier, Kiladangan are the team to beat, but on form, you think Thurles look the real lead at the moment.
It would be nice to see those two teams meet each other at some stage, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
that'd be mouth-watering.
Yeah.
Upper Church, last week you were perhaps forecasting gently that their days of contesting against the better teams might be slightly coming to the end, but they produced a good performance against Drom and Inch, who were probably the more disappointing team. So 3-14 to 1-17 for a finish, and it was only a penalty just at the death that even brought Drom that close. So there's probably slightly more in it than that suggests.
Oh, look, I was kicking myself after when I heard there was why did I get suckered in by Drom again? Because Upper Church have had their number in the last couple of years, and I said I should have been loyal to Upper to say that these boys would get over the line again. And in fairness, they did that. But look, it's I don't know. There's something missing in Drom. Like, I know you saw some of it watching back earlier on. There's not an awful lot of pace in their forward line, and I look like they're still relying heavily on Callanan and Johnny Ryan and David Collins for their scores. There's just something missing there at the moment. There's a lot of good hurlers there, but you just have they a top end couple of hurlers like that'll be my worry for them. Is look, that's not to say that they won't go out and beat Anacarty in 2 weeks' time and maybe sneak into the quarterfinals, because on form you're probably expecting Thurles to beat Upper Church Drumban, which would mean that Drum probably wouldn't have maybe 3 or 4 5-point win might be enough, and they could sneak through on score difference. But I don't know what your take on Drum are. There's something missing at the moment, and you can't quite put your finger on it.
Yeah, you kind of have a fair idea that if you shut down Seamus Callanan, if you can keep him somewhat limited at all, that you're in with a very good chance of beating him. Yeah, they just seem a little bit limp.
Defensively, 8 goals conceded in 2 matches. Like, they've got to sort out that. Maybe they have to start playing a sweeper or something to. Because, like, even go back to last year's county semi-final, like, they were so poor against Kiladangan that day, and even.
Do they have an excuse that day because they'd gone to extra time the week before against Borris?
Probably, yeah. Probably you would have said something like that. But even against Borris, I would have said, like, Borris were probably the better team for a lot of that match. And
they were their own worst enemy too, with too much long ball.
Now Drum back into it, and Drum took advantage.
Yeah, I'd say to be fair to Upper Church, they made the best of what they had. Like, the high ball into Jack Butler led to the first goal for Pádraig Green. And then was it Paul Shanahan with a great fetch and assist for Green's other goal. Like, Green finished his absolutely brilliantly. But they made the most of what they had. And then it was great to see James Barry coming in. Obviously, he's had his own health issues over the last while. He came on into the half-forward line. That's largely where he seemed to operate it from what I could tell. And knocked over a beautiful score from, 50 yards or so. It was just it was great to see. And the road went up too. I think obviously the Upper Church locals were delighted to see him out there.
Yeah, I know. I suppose it's the way things have worked out for him. As I know there was disappointment in Upper Church. Was it the year before last when James decided when he retired from Tipperary? He more or less wanted to finish. I would say finish hurling, but I suppose life has a strange habit of throwing a curveball at you, and I suppose maybe the fact that the cancer diagnosis, and thankfully he's coming out the right side, and I suppose he's had a chance to God, while I'm fit and able, why not stay hurling? And he's gone back and he started playing junior and he's back playing senior. And who's not to say that James Barry will Upper Church have got very, very close to Thurles the last couple of years, but this does look like this looks like the old ruthless Thurles Sarsfield's top of the range team we had a few years ago. While so I think,
but the weather is still nice and the fields are still fairly firm. This is the thing that's going to be thrown at Thurles.
Possibly, yeah. I think the Church wouldn't when you're playing Thurles often enough, like Upper Church are. You don't really fear them. So I think Upper Church will keep this tight for a lot of it. I still think Thurles will win, but Upper Church should be keen to make sure that if they do fall, that they don't fall by a big, because as I think James Barry said on the radio in the week, Upper Church have always been the team that tended to finish third in groups for years, and it smacks of another where it might happen again, where if Drum get a win over Anacarty, which is quite possible, and maybe Upper Church maybe lose to jump maybe Sars, I think Drum could sneak in there and ruin it, because by the looks of it, look, if Anacarty are the one that have their fate in their own hands, and look, I'm not ruling out Anacarty from getting a win or a draw over Drum and getting in themselves, but the score difference hammering Anacarty took, if Anacarty lose to Drum, you probably have to think it's between Drum and Upper Church to get through is in second place.
Okay, so that's the Dan Breen. We'll move into the Seamus O'Reen. You already mentioned Thurles Sarsfield's their second team, beating Kiladangan's second team 2-18-12 is fairly comprehensive enough. But rough enough going for Burgess. Obviously, they just got relegated last year, and they're in a bit of bother again after losing to Carrick Swans.
Yeah, they're confirmed to be in the relegation playoffs again, because they can't, even if they beat Thurles in the last game, which you'd say they would have been up against it anyway. They've lost the head-to-head matchup to both Kiladangan and the Swans. So look, it's tough. They're struggling to score. They scored 14 points against Burgess or Kiladangan. They scored 15 points against Kiladangan. Haven't threatened a goal. They were 12 points to 6 up against Swans at half time, and only managed 3 points in the second half, none in the final quarter. So look, it's easy to see where their problems are. It's in the scoring category. So look, they've the Thurles Sarsfields game now, which is more or less a tune-up game for the relegation playoff. And look, it's tough for them, but look, it's going to be difficult for them to get out of. But look, you look at the Kiladangan Swan game, that's winner takes all now. A draw would be good enough for Kiladangan. But you'd like to think maybe the Swan, now they've got a win under their belt, a few injuries beginning to clear up, that they would sneak into the quarterfinals. And Carrick Swans, if they got on a run, that could be a hard team to beat. So but that game is, I wouldn't rule out Thurles about winning maybe the Senior B Championship. They're loaded with talent and guys that would have had Senior A experience. And look, Thurles Og and Thurles are just turning out young quality hurlers every year. So look, I wouldn't be surprised if they go very, very close to winning this. But look, they just have ball players coming out their ears, and quality. Yeah. They're training with the Senior A team, so they'll be going very, very close.
Yeah, that sort of thing definitely makes a difference. Yeah. Tipperary beat Clonakilty 125-114, so heavy enough victory there. And Newport put up 326 against Silvermines, so obviously that'll sting for Silvermines. Yeah,
no, I was at that game, but just going back to Tipperary, it was 125-114, but it was tight enough going into the last quarter. When I suppose Tipperary pulled away, and they had Adrian Ryan coming off the bench scoring 4 points. But I suppose the big thing for Tipperary will be the injury Brian Stapleton suffered, and there's a suspicion it's the Achilles tendon. And if he's gone, that's a big loss for them. Like, he is very, very important to them. So hopefully, like, they're already through to the quarterfinals. So the quarterfinal won't be for 4 or 5 weeks. We know the Achilles, even if it's not fully ruptured, even if it's in a strain, like, there's very, very little training you can do in that. Like, you're really only managing it. So please, fingers crossed for him in Tipperary that it's not that bad. But as I say, I was at the Newport Silvermines game. Very, very impressed with Newport. 326. They looked primed for this, like the bit stung after the way they conceded 520 against Tipperary. But I would have to facet to saying, like, some of the marking of the Silvermines defending was atrocious. Like, there were so yards off, and this was with them playing a sweeper, which would have meant that everybody who has had a man marking job was able to be touch tight. Gee, there were some times there in the first half where Keelan Flynn, Pa Ryan, Derek Harlow, there were yards off their men. Like, so, and like, Silvermines got 4 goals, 3 from place balls, 1 penalty, and 2 21-yard frees. Like, it just shows you how reliant they are on Jason Ford. And I don't. It's Jason Ford is not playing. Silvermines they're very, very poor. Like, I know they're trying to bring through an awful lot of young lads, 17, 18, 19-year-olds off a very good minor team, but you could see they were very, very raw on the day. Like, and look, Michael Ferncombe and the boys, they've an awful lot of work to do. And like, and they played Tipperary last, and it's hard to see them pulling off a win there. So they're probably hoping that they probably don't lose as much, maybe Clonakilty duel against Newport, and maybe avoid a relegation battle and score difference. Like, so it's going to be tough for Silvermines. Like, but look, when you have Jason Ford in your team, you have the ability to maybe extricate yourself from relegation, but you do have a forward of top class intercounty quality in your team who can do things that most forwards can't do.
In groups 3 and 4, Gertnahoe beat Tracy's, Killanall beat Ballina, and then Portrusa off Joe and Laura, and St Mary's beat Cashel King Cormacs. So anyone stand out in particular there? Gertnahoe, that's a decent win over Tracy's anyway.
Yeah, like, they're up from intermediate and they're already guaranteed a quarter-final place. So, look, just shows you, like, they're a team that probably have no inter-county, maybe star talent, but which meant they've been able to focus. I suppose you always get that bounce coming up from intermediate lads hungry, and like, you have Rowan and Tehan there, Brian Maher, good ball players, are very, very well coached team, full of movement. And this is I think this is a team that are arguably without their best forward in Keane Hayes. Like, so, like, to be this good without him in their lineup is they're going very, very well. Killanall, you probably think, are probably set to join him in the knockout stages. Bubbles was back last weekend. Looked decent enough. Like, they were ahead 8 points at halftime against Ballina. So, but they were hanging on for a finish. But looks like Killanall and Killanall and get through there. Ballina and Tracy's fighting it out at the bottom. Ballina can't qualify for the quarterfinals, which is a big blow for them. So, like, they'll be hoping. Like, that match against Sean Tracy's again, that's more or less a match to stay up and to avoid the relegation playoffs. And you go to Group 4. I think this group is living up to its billing as being the group, the tightest group. Unfortunately, from my point of view, Laura are down at the bottom, but still have a chance of maybe getting through if they were to beat, I think, Cashel by 5 points, and if Portrue suffered even a 2 or 3 point loss to St Mary's in the last game. So, like, St Mary's, like, they followed up the win over Laura by beating Cashel by 4 points, and probably 4 was probably being kind, and Cashel were comfortably 4, 5, 6 points ahead all through. So, like, probably St Mary's were probably starting to see them the flowering of some of those good minor teams from 5 and 6 years ago, and maybe Cashel probably not that there yet. They're still trying to gel in some of those younger guys. But Portrue, as typical Portrue, as I put backs against the wall stuff in a game where they had to win, they did it, and they did it against Laura deservedly. So Laura, just that small bit off the edge is not there compared to last year, and that's even accounting for the fact Patrick Bonnar Maher is not there with his injury. But that bit of hunger, maybe, as you would have with a first-year manager, John McIntyre, not quite there. But that's not to say that maybe 2 weeks' time, where backs against the wall, Laura will come out fighting and maybe produce a performance. Whereas I know, look, talking to them, their target is if they can beat Cashel and maybe hit that 5-point buffer, which would guarantee them out of relegation. That's their minimum target. If they can, anything after that would be a bonus. And that's not to say that, look, Laura couldn't produce something big when they need it. Because look, you don't get to a final last year being a bad team. It's just, we've all seen it, Shane, over the years. If a team that maybe comes from nowhere gets to it, there's always susceptibility, but maybe if the edge drops off a small bit, you could fall back to the pack, and that's probably happening at the moment. But they definitely have the ability to beat Cashel, and maybe after that, see whatever takes them.
And interestingly, one of Cashel's players, Ryan O'Dwyer, he's been interviewed for the Westmeath hurling job, so we'll keep an eye on that now in the next week or so.
I heard that would be a risky one, wouldn't it? I guess Westmeath would be looking for somebody with a bit more stature at this stage, because considering they're in Division 1 next year, they're in the Leinster Championship, they'll be looking for someone a bit more experienced that would maybe make them at least competitive. It's like they'd be targeting that staying ahead of Laois and staying up in that championship next year.
Yeah, well, he's coached Longwood and Meath, and he's currently coaching Fingallians in Dublin, so he definitely has a bit of playing experience, coaching experience there. So it'll definitely be an interesting one to keep an eye on in the next while. And we'll just quickly look over the Intermediate Hurling Championship as well. I'll just read out a couple of the results and you can sort of react on the back of it. If obviously you can't see every match, but we'll just reflect on it briefly. So Moyne Temple drew with Drum 112-15, Borris O'Kane 420, Kappa White 313. Carrick Davins beat Ballybacon Grange, Knockavilla Kickham's beat Moneygall, and then Kilsheelan and Kilcash in Group 3 they beat Borlath and Duala. Moyle Rovers just about soft goal of Kilfeacle, and then in Group 4 Shannon Rovers and Arravale Rovers drew, and Ballynahinch also drew with Ballingarry. So a couple of draws there, plenty of draws across the board actually as it happens. Yeah,
it's actually a championship so living up to its billing has been absolutely wide open. Actually, no team has booked a place in the quarterfinals yet, which is remarkable. Like I think Kappa White are the only team that can't qualify for the knockout stages from the group stage, but having won the West Intermediate Championship, they're guaranteed the preliminary quarterfinals. So technically, all 16 teams are still in the running for the intermediate title, which is remarkable stuff. Like so, but Kappa they're definitely involved in relegation, but the only way they can avoid relegation is by winning the county championship. And that's not to say Kappa couldn't go on a run. Like so, when you look. They scored 313. If they can tighten up defensively, I think they could get on a run. But like you look, Moyne Temple Toohey, that was probably a bit of an arm wrestle against Drum and Inch. They know Drum for years, like so that was probably a bit of a local derby stalemate and that. So I still think they'll look decent. I think Knockavilla Kickham's minus the 4 quality players have lost, beating I know a Moneygall team that are pretty decent and are on the up. Like that'd be a notable one for me. Like if you're losing 4
they won the North Intermediate, didn't they, Moneygall?
Yeah, and definitely, and like if Adam Hogan there, Joe Fogarty scored 3-5 against Kickham's. Like he would have been on the Tip under 20 that won in 2019. So he's probably another one you would put in the bracket of maybe a guy that could come into looking at potential Tip players of the future. Like so, but look, like Kickham's lost to a county semi-final last year. They've lost 4 quality players, but they're still pouring along nice. It just shows you maybe just the spirit is still very, very strong there. So, like, I would think that they're definitely there in with a shout. Who else would I be looking at? I thought Ballingarry looked very, very strong, but Ballynahinch typically coming back and were 8 points down at half-time, come back to earn a draw. Like, Ballingarry looked very, very good there. And like I wouldn't rule out Kilsheelan and Kilcash either, because like you have Mark Keogh, Bill Maher, an awful lot of guys that have played inter-county dual hurling and football will be very, very strong. So I think Kilsheelan are probably going to be in the bracket a lot like Brackens and Lockmore, where they could be playing weekend on, weekend off hurling and football. But I think they have the capability to carry both, because they have some very, very good players there.
Okay, well look, great stuff for the show. We'll be back again next week. Cheers, Shane.
Cheers, Shane.
Welcome to Tippcast by the Nenagh Guardian.